Right, so with Israel still likely to collapse the Gaza ceasefire within the next 24 hours, biblical threats now coming from the upper echelons of the Netanyahu regime, and what much of the media have consistently avoided talking about is how much Israel, like every other ceasefire they are supposedly party to, have broken the terms of this one as well, and how often. They have continued to mete out atrocities, they have continued to occupy areas they shouldn't any longer be in, continued to target people who should be, and with exactly the same set of circumstances existing in Lebanon as well, the consistent excuse making to cover up for their incessant breaches of ceasefire terms makes Israel the most dishonest of peace brokers going. There is no compromise they won't seek to gain an advantage over, even when it comes to the matter of getting aid into the Gaza Strip. As this channel has covered on several occasions, the aid promised to the people of Gaza during the ceasefire has not necessarily arrived. The most needed items, such as water and shelter, have not got in sufficiently, when they should have been amongst the first things to turn up. Well, if the media won't make a point of talking about such matters, a stroke of Egyptian brilliance will make it very hard for them to ignore going forwards, and it has shown Israel up a treat. Right, so that was a 2-minute-ish clip. I felt it necessary to give it that long, just to give you an appreciation of the size of the queue there, and the items being carried in, or attempted to be carried in, to the Gaza Strip via the Rafah border crossing, which is where that piece of film ended at, because that is all of the heavy plant machinery and mobile homes being held up at that crossing, not being allowed into the Strip. And I thought it rather clever that Egypt made the point of having all of that queued up there, waiting, unlikely as it is to get in, Egyptian flags all over the place flying there as well. Because these are the very items the people of Gaza desperately need that should already have been let in and being deployed, proper shelter, the ability to begin clearing rubble, rebuilding, recovering the remains of the deceased for identification and proper burial. Video footage circulating is literally showing the stuff Gaza most needs is there, at the gates, waiting to enter, and yet it is being denied entry, whilst the mainstream media completely ignores the fact. Images like this show how the media can be circumvented via social media, if we all play our part in that. So it's rather important, when you see that, to share these images as widely as possible. No mobile homes have been allowed in at all, and there's a shortage of tents as well. Very little by way of machinery for recovery operations has been allowed in either, and it is desperately needed, especially in the worst hit areas of northern Gaza, as has been described in a statement by Médecins Sans Frontières emergency coordinator in Gaza, Caroline Sanguine. In the North Governorate, the level of destruction is total. It's a flat land. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Our Palestinian colleagues are no longer able to recognise their own neighbourhoods. Some were in shock, others literally collapsed. In Gaza City, we were already shocked by the level of destruction, but then we went north to Jabalia. We couldn't say a word. There is nothing there anymore. Only ruins and the smell of death everywhere because of the dead bodies still trapped under the rubble. There is no health system anymore in the northern part of the Strip. Kamal Adwan Hospital has been razed, while Al-Shifa, Al-Auda and the Indonesian hospitals are seriously damaged and only partially functioning. We were utterly shocked to observe that in an Indonesian hospital, every medical machine seemed to have been deliberately destroyed. They were smashed to pieces, one by one, to make sure no medical care could be provided anymore. The provision of medical care is largely insufficient compared to the needs of the hundreds of thousands of people living in the area. For example, between North Governorate and Gaza City, there are only 6 paediatric intensive care beds compared to 150 before the war, and the number of patient hospital beds has plummeted from 2,000 to 350. The flow of vital supplies has improved since the ceasefire, but the level of needs is so high that people are still lacking basic items. The need for food, water, tents and shelter materials in this area remains critical. Water shortages are a real challenge given the high level of damage to water facilities and because they are in inaccessible locations in the buffer zones. Our teams have started water trucking activities in Jabalia and Bayat Hanun, and they repair damaged boreholes. But this is a temporary solution and is not sufficient for the massive needs. The problem is that because of the war, we have located our activities in the south, and it now takes time to redeploy them to the north. Absolutely horrifying. And this is just one aspect of how Israel have not abided by the terms of the Gaza ceasefire. More than 100 Palestinians have been killed since the ceasefire began last month, according to the organisation Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor, an average of some 6 people a day, caused by both direct attack by Israeli forces or through succumbing to their injuries as Israel has denied them passage outside of the Strip for treatment. On top of that, a further 900 have been injured, thus averaging 47 Israeli-inflicted injuries on Palestinians in the Gaza Strip during a ceasefire per day. They have also reiterated that Israel had breached the Gaza ceasefire agreement by failing to fulfill its commitment to allow the entry of essential supplies, including aid, fuel, tents and housing units. The government media office in Gaza said on Tuesday that 3,500 aid trucks, 35 fuel trucks and 180,000 tents are missing. Where are they? What has Israel done with that lot? Adding that no mobile homes have been provided as well. Well, they're very much waiting outside the Rafah border crossing. We've seen that now. If it would just be allowed in. So why isn't it? Simple. It's stuff the IDF will end up destroying as soon as the ceasefire falls, as soon as they end it. And fall it will, be it this weekend or in the next couple of weeks. Netanyahu isn't really in charge anymore. If he wants to remain in post, which seems to be an all-consuming obsession of his, then he has to do as his coalition partners demand. And as always, there is a comment from the real person in charge in Israel right now to point to prove this point. Israel's far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich called on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to open the gates of hell on Gaza if all Israeli captives are not released by Saturday. He added, and that means no electricity, no water, no fuel, no humanitarian aid. Only fire and brimstone from our planes, artillery, tanks and heroic fighters. Full occupation of the Gaza Strip. The removal of all Gazans from the Strip in line with President Trump's plan. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Tuesday that the ceasefire deal would be cancelled, with US President Donald Trump stating all hell will break loose if Hamas does not release all Israeli captives by Saturday. This comes as Hamas said it would delay the release of Israeli hostages until further notice, accusing Israel of failing to comply with the terms of the truce deal. That, of course, came before Hamas's about-face on releasing hostages tomorrow, the names of those to be released having now been confirmed to have been accepted by the Israeli regime. But will the ceasefire still hold afterwards, given demands that all hostages must now be released? Not if Bezalel Smotrich's biblical threats of fire and brimstone means he won't stand for the ceasefire to last a moment longer. It's par for the course for this disgusting man, though. So the fact all those trucks queuing up pointing out how his lot are breaking the ceasefire anyway, and we can all see it, will I'm sure be annoying him no end. Israel thrives on their Hasbara, their propaganda, and thanks to Egypt's flag waving from these trucks not being allowed in, carrying the very aid observers are stating is not being allowed in, also in breach of the ceasefire, well, it'll be a brave media outlet still shilling for Israel and saying everything is Hamas's fault if the ceasefire breaks down, when video footage is very much saying the opposite. Meanwhile, a dust-up in the Knesset shows that even in Israel, things are not going entirely Netanyahu's way over all of this, the end of the ceasefire being a sign of blatant self-preservation on his part by both opposition MKs and the family of hostages besides. Get all the details of the cracks showing in Netanyahu's horrendous regime, deserved as they are, in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe before you do so though, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new content dropping daily on this channel, as well as helping to support the channel as well, which is enormously appreciated. And I will hopefully catch you on the next video. Cheers folks.